We definitely want to know more about you. So we know that you are the CEO of Cardinal Group. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to be the CEO of Cardinal Group?
Huh, sure. Well, a lot of people ask me, they'll want career advice and they'll say, well, how did you climb the corporate ladder or, how do you get promoted? And I was like, I've never been promoted. I just started my own company. So, you know, I, um, I was a Marine Corps officer based in Camp Pendleton and which is in San Diego and had the just unbelievable luck to meet the co-founders of Cardinal Group, Dell, Jason, and Eric. And we shared a lot of things in common, but not just being entrepreneurial in spirit, but also a real desire to create something of value and to focus on people. And so we actually started the business way back in like 2006, and I had held a variety of roles, just like any good entrepreneur, to help the business succeed. And was my partners asking me to be the CEO in 2020, and so great timing with a global pandemic right around the corner. But yeah, and so it's been a hell of a journey and a lot of amazing memories that we formed and a lot of amazing days ahead.
So you mentioned that you never had to be promoted, Alex. How does someone become an entrepreneur? How do you know that that's your calling to be an entrepreneur?
I think you have to really have a high pain tolerance. So, like, if anyone's ever punched you in the face and you got back up quickly, then that might be a a good indication. Or if you've ever said, you know what, I might be unemployable. I don't know if I might not be a good employee. Maybe I'm a better boss here. But no. In all seriousness, I think that you know, I I don't know if I was such an obvious entrepreneur, but I knew I wanted to be on a great team. I've always really admired, just great leaders, being on a team, putting the team first, just kind of people that, had servant leadership and a heart to be on a great team. And so I probably sought that out more than I sought just starting a business. And so, meeting Jason and Dal and Eric was just very fortuitous for me because they brought me into this kind of entrepreneurial idea where I don't know if I would have ever thought of that. And in fact, one of my passions now is helping veterans explore entrepreneurship because I don't think the military and just, being a veteran, it doesn't naturally kind of set you up to think, I'm going to start my own business. And so I do like to sit down and help veterans think through what would it mean to sit down and go through a business plan and get the business funded and what all entails, starting a business.
Well, I do want to say we thank you for your service.
Yeah,
We think that
thanks.
you have that's a very important job. So thank you. And now, can you tell us a little bit about Cardinal Group? How many properties, employees do you have?
Sure.
Where are you located? Can you kind of tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So zero employees, but 2,400 team members around the country. We operate in 44 states. We're nearly at 50,000 units. A lot of student housing, which was kind of our calling card and where we built our brand and reputation, multifamily, BTR, affordable housing. And so we're headquartered in Denver. We have team members all over the place. We have a really flexible work policies and work environment, and that naturally brings us to have people not just here in Colorado, which is amazing for all of you not in Colorado but are thinking about a winter visit. It's truly a special place. But we have team members from Florida to Washington and everywhere in between. And I think being flexible has allowed us to just attract the best talent in the industry. And so, we're a property management company. We're an investment shop where we do ground up development. And most importantly, we're known as, a top culture in our industry, which is probably our greatest achievement, way more important than the number of units and revenue and all that kind of business stuff. I think knowing that we've built a company in which people love to work is certainly the trophy that goes highest on the case around here.
Is it safe to say that Cardinal Group is mainly a third party management company? Is that the bulk of your business?
Yeah, we have quite a bit of third party. I'd say we're really think we're a good partner. And that leads to a lot of third-party management opportunity, specifically in student housing, which has been a relatively underserviced business for the last decade or so. And so there's been a few great companies that have really taken an outsized market share. But yes, we do quite a bit of third-party management, so call it like 70-30 managed to own. But like I said, I think the same characteristics of being a great operator, being a great partner, that really carries over into the investment side of our business. And so we've raised and deployed about $1 billion in capital as well since starting the business. So it's a significant part of our business, but currently our portfolio is again about a 70-30 split.
I wanted to ask you a follow-up question on this. How has Cardinal Group adapted to market changes? What strategies have you employed to stay resilient in such a dynamic industry where the competition is very high at the top? To be a top 50 company, like, you have to really be on top of your game.
Right. Well, I recently had told someone I think that everyone has resources, right? And I equated this to wood, and I said, you can either use that wood to build a boat, or you can build a dam. And we've always believed in build a big boat and go with the current, and be progressive, ride that kind of wave of change. And so, we continue to focus on innovation, whether that's in the employer relationship, whether that's in how we operate, whether that's in how we develop, investment strategies. And so we're constantly changing. In fact, I think that's the only thing we know how to do, is just keep changing. And to some extent, it's a really interesting advantage that a big part of our portfolio houses 19 and 20-year-olds, and so we're constantly learning about tomorrow's renters and what they expect and what they demand and how they live and the things that are important. And so I think by being on the front end of a consumer demographic, it's you just really learn a lot about where the industry is going and what changes are happening. And so we've really significantly invested in data over the last 5 years, really significantly invested in both BI and AI, and have a large and growing centralization platform as well. I think we're one of, if not the largest, student housing operator in terms of number of beds that use centralized services. And we've employed that same strategy in multifamily and build to rent and other verticals as well, including affordable housing, which I always think is kind of this forgotten big sector, big and growing sector within housing that could really use some innovation to improve the quality of experience for those residents too. And so, one of our core values is to embrace change. And I always tell our team, like, we're really putting that core value to the test with our team, because we're constantly looking at ways we can evolve and change and keep hiking that next peak. So
Awesome. Now, being in the industry that you're in, real estate, multifamily, there are people who may be aspiring entrepreneurs or individuals looking to build a career in the multifamily industry. What advice would you offer to those individuals based on your experiences and your insights?
Yeah. Well, one, I think that you have to have a passion for people. It's like people ask, what's the difference between multifamily and hospitality? And it's like, there's subtle differences, but like, we work in people's homes. Like, these are truly people's homes where they live for at least a year, if not longer. And so I think that you just really have to have a deep desire to serve, and to serve people and to actually care about the end product. Like, we're not selling widgets here. We're selling an experience, an environment, a livelihood, a lifestyle, because these are people, when they come home from work, they come to our business, which happens to be in their home. And so, I tell I onboard everyone at Cardinal Group every Tuesday. And I do show up on time, unlike,
Yeah.
this, but I'm there on time. I would not make them wait a half hour, which I don't want to be a jerk, but they'll ask a similar, how do I get ahead? How do I get promoted? And,
Mhm.
I think the first thing we must all do is have a commitment to being really good at your job. Sometimes we start thinking about the second and third promotion, how do I become the VP? It's like, well, start where you're at now and just kick ass and work hard. And I know you guys have had success in your careers of like, keep learning, keep growing, stay humble, keep that kind of fire burning. But there's just so many ways that you can be successful in multifamily. And I think that diversity of skill really pays off. It's not just admin or maintenance. I mean, there's so much you can do in our industry
Uh-oh.
with HR and marketing and all kinds of things. So I think that being really good at your job is first and foremost, and then two, having that kind of passion and heart for people. Like those are like prerequisites to be successful in this industry.
I would like to go back to a previous statement that you made, and you stated that you're basically servicing the future renters, and that you've been gathering a lot of data. You've been investing in data. Could you share some of the findings that you're like what some of the stories that the data is telling you about the current type of renter and the future type of renter? Where are we heading based on the data that you've been gathering?
Well, one, every conversation on housing and the future is going to have two key components. One is going to be affordability. I mean, we're at a major, discussion point nationally and across a lot of housing options just in terms of affordability. And that could determine the kind of units we build, where we build them. All, there's affordable by design, there's affordable based on using some kind of low income housing tax credit. So there's affordability as a conversation, workforce housing, affordable, attainable. There's a lot there too. I do believe that the young people or the young renters that we see have a deeper focus and understanding on energy. And this is not although it is election day, this is not a political podcast, but I do think it's important for real estate owners and operators to not ignore that conversation. I know that ESG can be put in a lot of different buckets in terms of the response that people have or that equity has or operators. But the truth is, like energy is going to be a big conversation. And so I think affordability and energy is something that is important for future renters. From the experience side, I think there's a lot to learn on desired amenities, certainly connectivity, the speed of the Wi-Fi and just how much of their lives are now lived digitally versus in some kind of physical amenity. The resident and prospect experience, really blended with technology. That's why I really believe in centralization. It's not just can you, save half an FTE or whatever you're working out in your budget. It's what does the customer want, and the customers that we interact with that are 19 are very comfortable with smart home, with self-guided, with AI interaction, whether that's and usually text. And so as we kind of look at some of the trends of our industry, we have to acknowledge that the next group of renters are digital natives that are very comfortable with these digital interactions. And I know that sounds like completely obvious in 101, but I don't think people are paying enough attention to not just the changing behavior of current renters, but these 19 and 20-year-olds that are about to be, major renters. And again, I'm talking about college educated students. And so they're going to all the major cities, employment hubs around the United States. And that's really going to make up a big portion of what will someday very soon be called young professional renters. I'm housing them all now and watching them and learning about what they want. And so you got to talk about connectivity. You got to talk about digital experience. You have to talk about 24/7 access and staffing needs that kind of meets the renters where they're at. And so I think, again, we got to spend less time focusing on the old ways and more time focusing on what do the customers of this business want. And, and that's a generality. There's you can really chop it up from student to senior living. There's a lot to learn all up and down the demographic curve from kind of cradle to grave of our industry in terms of from start to finish. But I do think, the next 10 years are going to be an even bigger uptick in prop tech than what we've seen in the last 10.
Mhm. Now, because I'm an HR girly, I like to talk about people and culture, right?
Me too.
So, since I liked what you said earlier when I asked you how many employees you have, and you said we don't have employees, we have team members, and I think that that's important that's I think a very important way to describe your employees per se, right? Because of the fact that they are part of your team, and without your
Mhm.
team, your company can't be great. Now, being in property management, I think we all suffer through it the same way, where maybe there are shortages, we can't find maintenance techs, we can't
Mhm.
fill or find the right talent for our roles. So for Cardinal Group, especially in the context of the culture, like how have you addressed any challenges such as maybe staff shortages? What strategies have been effective in attracting and retaining top talent?
Yeah, wow, that's a great question. I always say I don't necessarily just want more jobs, we want better jobs. I think right now there's a kind of a friction point of how technology and staffing design are interacting. But the truth is, our industry's been understaffed for a long time. We use these old ratios of just 1 second, one per 100, team members per units. And I think that's just kind of an old way to look at it. And we never really focused on just the quality of employment in the industry. It was just, can you find people? And we need to listen to the labor force and to say, like, if people aren't interested in being maintenance techs, like, why? It's like, let's not just jump to they're not out there. It's like, it's competitive. So, like, what would you rather do than be a maintenance tech? What would you rather do than work in our industry? And I don't think our industry paid enough attention to the brand of multifamily. And that's why we say we want to be the employer of choice. We want to be the standard bearer. I get calls all the time from my competitors. They're like, you're putting so much pressure on us by adding this benefit or paying this amount. I'm like, good. Like, I want your people calling Cardinal. Like, that's, and in fact, I want people outside the industry saying, wow, this looks like a really interesting place to work. But,
Mhm.
one of the strategies that we look at is, are we a place of, and if you look at like intent to stay, right, which you study more than me, you're an HR professional and an executive. So if I say anything dumb, you can correct me. But from my understanding of, through leadership of intent to stay, one, really tying people to the mission. That's why we talk a lot about mission. We talk a lot about communities where residents thrive, being the best place to work for anyone. Like, really kind of using that language to get people excited. Like, you want to be excited about your work. Two is there opportunities for growth, and that growth is not just promotion, it's skills. And I think right now more than anything, I think people are looking at, well, what companies are focused on future skills? Are they setting me up to be a success? I always say to my people, I want you hard to keep. Like, we're going to train you up and make you so attractive and put the Cardinal brand on you that people are going to be calling you nonstop. And that's good for you. Like, that's good for you. So, like, let's do that together. Let's go on this journey of growth together. And so I think when you focus on that growth of both skills, and we focus on, leadership and future skills with technology, but also, future opportunity for more money, more title, all the things that we can't ignore. It's just that people care about. And then three, I think where the culture of kind of connectivity and authenticity help is, people, one, you got to like your boss. If you hate your boss, you just hate your job. We all know that.
Yeah.
Like, people tell me, so, I've had people quit. Oh, I hate Cardinal. I'm like, no, you don't. You just hate your boss. And that's still my
Mhm.
bad. And I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
like, I get it. But then, so you gotta train up leaders in your company, managers. You gotta give them the skills. That's really important. But two, people stay when they have a friend at work, and so that's where connectivity really matters. Is like, do you actually, like, are you excited to see your coworkers? Like, do you actually, like, have we created a safe, inclusive, fun environment, where people come in, they feel protected, they feel safe, someone's got their back, someone cares about them. I mean, that one question, like, does a teammate care about you? like that drives all kinds of like knowledge of your company. And so, yeah, there's so much backed into that. I will tell you, as a CEO, I know I'm supposed to do a lot of things. I do spend a disproportionate amount of time obsessing over what it means to work here, because I do think a competitive advantage, even once we all have all this crazy new technology and, it's all going to change the world and blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah. But the truth is, it's still going to come down to who has the best team. And
Yeah.
so I never stop obsessing over, like, are we creating a great place for people to work?
And I have a follow-up on that as well. Since we're
Good.
talking about people, we're talking about culture. DEI today is like such a hot topic, which
Huh.
me bringing up being a brown girl, I'm a Latina, so I am always about representation, especially in corporate environments.
Yeah.
So now what does Cardinal do when it comes to DEI? How are you
Yeah.
placing maybe people of color or, LGBTQ or whatever it is, different people in different levels within the organization.
Yeah. What a great question. I actually think it's weirdly becoming less important. I think a lot of corporations kind of got their social media fix and checked their little box during, some social pressure. And what I've actually seen, and I'm a member of the Colorado Inclusive Economy, which is, one of the leaders nationally in terms of creating not just jobs, but high paying jobs for people of color and minorities, and really trying to make Colorado the most inclusive and diverse economy in the country. I got a long way to go. We started the group because we ranked so damn low in the first place. So, we're not tooting our horn or anything, but I do spend time focused there. And what we found is a lot of companies pulling back from it, saying, all right, like, we're not getting the same D&I social pressure. And so what you're starting to see is companies that are showing their true colors a little bit. And as a mentor, told me when we were really leaning into this journey, and said, even if you're slow to start, don't be fast to finish. And so the one thing that we do is we keep going. We don't stop because it's no longer popular or needed to talk about. Like, we continue to focus on, and we do a lot of internal surveys, and when people are comfortable, we obviously are able to use demographic data to, like, really get the voice of our team members and say, like, is there any variance just between team members of all races and sexual identification and genders and all these things. And so I think without data, you can really just lose a little bit of the truth, like, and you get off on narrative. But I think there's two things that every company that should at least focus on, even if they're not like totally in on the D&I thing, which is whatever, that's up to them. Like, we are totally in on it, and even though we're in on it, like, there's all kinds of challenges and learning along the way. But two things: one, a diverse candidate pool requirement, not quotas and stuff. I know that can be unpopular, and I don't know how to manage all that. So, like, I don't know what to tell companies. If that's their policy, that's up to them. But what we found a lot of success in is trying to slow down the hiring process, not just let someone say, oh, I know a guy, and I do mean in this case a guy, um, but like, hey, there's a minimum requirement of diverse candidates that must be interviewed in the process. A little bit of like the Rooney Rule in the NFL, but when used properly, it actually has led to a more natural diversity. Because, like, voila, guess what? You have amazing, super qualified candidates that are people of color or women, all kinds of minorities that otherwise wouldn't have even been given that opportunity, largely because of how quick sometimes the hiring process moves with referrals, which I know a lot of people like referrals, but those actually can be the enemy of D&I if you don't already have a
Mhm.
diverse team. So with that said, make sure you have a diverse candidate pool requirement. And then two, pay equity. I mean, you got to just look across the board, and we do a lot of internal studies, and we have a full compensation team. And we found some issues, and you know what? We're supposed to find them. Like, when you do the study, don't run from the fact that it might be a little skewed, and we've just kind of met that with transparency on, this is what we found. This is what we're doing to fix it. It's not fair. And I always come back to, again, if you have a strong mission, when my team says, well, why do we care about, pay equity? Why do we care about D&I? Why do we care about all these things? And I said, because you can't be the best place to work in any industry without them. And so we're either true to our mission or not. And so the leaders of a company have to answer that question honestly of, are you true to your mission or not, whatever that mission is. And so for us, our mission is about our people. And so that's why those things are just so important. I've also hired amazing people. Our CTO, who became our COO, is a real strong champion for D&I, and she's just been an amazing leader internally. Our head of people and culture served at some Fortune 500 companies that were able to build kind of early days, globally recognized D&I programs. So I was able to really learn. But we came with our core values, and number 10 was be humble. And so I think in humility, you can kind of admit we fell short on D&I. We weren't where we wanted to be. We weren't the best place to work for all of our teammates. So now that we've said the truth, now we can get back to business and fix things and so I hope other leaders can have that same experience that we've had here.
Before the next question, first of all, since we started 30 minutes late, you're okay with us going over the top of the hour, right?
I'm good.
It's
It's called a hangout. I was about to go get a beer real quick.
How long do you have, Alex?
I mean, it's a hangout, so yeah.
How long do you have for us?
I have another hour.
That's fantastic. That's truly fantastic, because we have a lot more questions. Some of them are coming from our viewers right there. So we like to get to as much as we can, and we provide them as much value. Before asking the next question, I do want to give a shout out to our friends at Apartment Snapshot. They've been a great partner. They've been our sponsor to our podcast, and we couldn't have done this. We couldn't have put this together without them. And for all of you that are still around, for the diehards, type in your name and your location where you're currently located, and you're gonna be in for a $50 gift card, right? Cash, $50 from our sponsor, Apartment Snapshot. Okay, type your name and your location, and one of you is gonna be the lucky winner of a $50 gift card. Now, back to the question. There's a question that came from Jennifer Carter. Jennifer, thank you for the question. Are you using AI for hiring in any way? How do you see AI playing a difference when it comes to hiring?
Yeah, great question. We've looked at a few products out there, have not settled on one. I do think it's, there's ethical conversations around AI that we just have to keep at the forefront. I think sometimes we get going on the treadmill a little bit and start running fast, and suddenly AI is like the answer for everything. And so I'm reluctant to always, and I'm a big believer that it is going to drive efficiency and really make our jobs better. I do believe that. I'm also very cautious on products and where they are in their own development, and whether that's everything from security to accuracy. And I do think in a hiring decision, you just have to be it's such an important decision, right? And so I think where AI could be useful is really taking out some of the bias that does currently exist in the hiring process. And so I like that. I fear that the AI might have its own bias that we have to just kind of work through and make. So I think if there's anything, I would like to see AI being used as a dual track system, where we're still running candidates through a more traditional screening and hiring process, but then layering on AI to just kind of learn and get different insights. So we use all kinds of personality tests, which again aren't AI, but they are a way to gather data to make better hiring decisions, to try to align kind of right people for the right role. And so if anyone else out there has done it, though, I'd love to learn from you and hear more, because I do think it is a way that, and my guess is, like other policy changes that I've seen, it should drive a lot more fairness, assuming we can kind of get comfortable that the bias has kind of been removed from this specific, AI software, which the one I'm thinking of, or the ones we've looked at are in the kind of the resume screening, which I'm sure others have used as well, where it's able to really review quite a few resumes really quickly and kind of pull out that information. So
Nice. Now, let's look ahead into the future with as much as you can share with us. Now, do you have any upcoming projects or initiative that your company is excited about or that are going to be driving growth?
well, one, I think we just have a lot of growth on the horizon through just organic growth. And so, we've really established ourselves as a good partner and a good option. And so it's been really cool to see. I know there's been a lot of consolidation in the industry, a lot of M&A and companies buying companies, both in the tech space and in operations, in real estate portfolios and big aggregators of equity, like really gobbling up a lot of real estate. So it's been a really interesting trend to see just the scale that's been achieved in our industry via consolidation. With that said, we really like to be, great customer service, great client experience, a boutique operator. We're kind of big enough, which is funny to say at 50,000 units, you're boutique now. But you're kind of small enough to still care and big enough to have a really impressive platform. And so we are disproportionately focused on centralization and how changes in prop tech and the demands of our residents are driving a pretty rapid and wild change to an operating model that's been used for a long time. Since I got started, and I think Adrian, you've got a few years on me in terms of how long you've been doing good things in this industry, but it's been the same model for a long time, and I think there's been small changes, but now it feels like there's rapid and big changes coming, and so we're really focused on the integration of both centralization and technology, and how that's going to drive what we think. And if we're wrong, then I'm wrong, and our company will, you'll hear about it, but we think it will drive a better resident experience and team member experience. And we've seen this already. You think about student housing. If you want to hire someone in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, that's a small town. And if you live in Tuscaloosa, you only got like four options, or whatever. But when you go to a centralized model, and we're not doing a call center. I know some of our competitors have required everyone, you got to move to this city and you got to all work in co-location. We're not doing that. And so what we've done, which does it both ways. So any leasing agent in America that works on our centralized team, and if we like the same time zone, but I don't want to bore you guys with some of the small details, but can work to cover that community in the small town. And we'll keep using Tuscaloosa as an example. So that's great, right? We're no longer subject to just a limited labor pool. Conversely, if we have a team member and they happen to live in Tuscaloosa, but they want a different job, they're now not limited to, well, I have to be an on-site, which could be, amazing positions in leasing and maintenance and the manager and whatever. Or they could say, well, I'd love to work in, centralized operations or HR or marketing or whatever. So I think by really expanding our job architecture and being open, like we're going to get great candidates all over the country in small markets. We're also going to lead to retention. Someone who might have wanted to stay with the company, but the property sells or it changes management, which happens all the time in our industry. And so now we say, well, we actually have a lot of remote and centralized options to work at Cardinal. And so we are really hyper focused on the changes that are happening right in front of us. I know not everyone's a believer, and I know other companies are kind of fighting against that, but I think I have a pretty clear line of sight on how our industry is going to change, and we want to be a leader, not a follower in that.
So I do have a question on technology. I was at Uptech last week, and on a panel, there was a conversation that started like this. Our company requires our leasing agents to be proficient in like 48 different apps. And someone said, wow, you're doing great. Our company requires like 63. For us, the number is 63. this is like beyond overwhelming, and it's honestly unrealistic. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
it comes to a point where like we're punishing people with technology. It's not
Right.
really ending up solving problems. It's actually creating problems for people. Like how in a work you could expect an entry level individual, because most
Yeah.
using agents are entry level, right? Uh,
Mhm.
Associates to be proficient in 40, 50, 60 plus apps.
Right.
So I do wanted to ask you, Alex, what type of, like how do you overcome this challenge? How do you do things at Cardinal Group? So hopefully, you don't have to deal with the same, like, 40, 50, 60 uh, thing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and how do you, how do you vet technology in general? Like, what's your process?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
where's their HR person at? Like, what? That is crazy. How do you even
Well,
hire
man,
top talent like that?
I mean, think about the next person. Like, it's bad enough you had to learn 50, but when you leave, the new person's got to learn 50. I mean, it's crazy. Like the training and onboarding burden that have been created and,
Mm,
the cost of turnover, like it's just wild. No wonder, going back to your first comment, no wonder people don't want to work in this industry.
yep.
It's like, hey, come to multifamily. You get to learn 63 new apps. It's like, sweet. Sounds sounds like a sweet job. I'm so excited. It's like, and that's why I tell people about like technology. It's like everyone wants their job to be, I don't want to just say easier, but like no one wants bullshit. It's like you
Mhm,
want the hard parts of your job to be
mhm.
rewarding, but
Exactly.
like it's not like the maintenance guy is like, well, I don't want to sweat. I don't want to be in the crawl space. He's just like, I don't want to
Yeah.
mess around with inefficiency and crap. And it's hard to know, I can't get my work orders. I didn't even know, what to do. It's like no one wants that. And so I think sometimes people mistake that no one wants hard work. I'm like, it's not the hard work, it's the inefficient crap work. And when I hear someone say 63 apps, that's crap. Like just plain and simple. And so, we have a really, we have a PMO team, so project management. It sits in our IT and data department, and it's, I mean, primarily all about vetting. I will say one of the hard parts about a third-party management company, and I think all the tech guys got smart maybe a decade ago, and they stopped going just to the property management companies and started going to ownership groups. And so, now it's less about, hey, if you sign up, insert company, you use their tech stack. Now a lot of ownership groups are wanting to customize the tech stack that's used, and so you do end up with like a lot of variety and a little bit of a hodgepodge. So I'm not fighting against that. I'm more of like trying to go to a bespoke solution in which we are able to support more. But I think that you really need to like limit, like, where are those apps actually adding like value. Some of that's just like preference over actual like productivity and value created. And so, we like to use a base system, a core system. We might have a few add-ons on top of that, but I mean, like I said a question ago, I think what that's going to lead to is a lot of consolidation in the industry. I mean, you got all the big companies that are now owned by, real private equity. These aren't like, throwaway companies. These are huge private equity companies that now own RealPage and Entrada. And like, my guess is the core systems are going to continue. And I know RealPage has historically done a lot of M&A, but I think that will really pick up. And I think through pricing power and just consolidation in general, companies are going to shed this 60 app and go down to like a real focus on, the tech that's adding value to operations.
Mhm. I have a friend, Tony Harris. Shout out to Tony Harris. She says, "Let's make property management sexy again."
Yeah.
Like you've been saying, there property management, a lot of people are trying to stay away from it. So now, my question to you as a CEO, I'm sure you have gone through many deals. Of course, you have a company of 2,400 team members, so you've definitely done something right. But I know that along the way, some things maybe have gone wrong, right? So can you share with us, like, what else have you taken? Not losses, but maybe lessons, maybe a bad
Yeah.
deal, maybe, whatever it was. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that sometimes it's about the money because you're in business, and we've had real cultural alignment issues with certain clients, and those never go away, just so everyone knows. Because unless your culture changes or their culture changes, which generally is not really going to happen, those cultural misalignments. So I think, and that's made it tough, and we've lost really good team members who would say, like, it's hard to like Cardinal when this company is the client or whatever. And so I've learned the hard way, you got to be transparent, and you got to be eyes wide open on the client selection, and, like, who's aligned to you, who's really bought into the partnership. And so I think that's really important. I mean, certainly, if our mission's to be the best place to work for anyone, like, we've missed that. We haven't had great managers all the time, and that's created poor team member experiences. We haven't always made right decisions. We've rolled out crappy tools. We've been unfair in our expectations of the on-site teams. It's all kinds of pressures that I think have led to suboptimal outcomes. But yeah, I think that client selection's huge. I think that we've always, by embracing change, we've we've always changed. I think we've sometimes lost control of how fast we were changing. And so that was a huge lesson, not just in can we change, but like almost can the people that actually have to deal with the change deal with it. And I was a Marine, so I get it, where the guys in the field and the Marines out on the front line have a very different perception than some other guys that are sending in the orders of what to do. And so I perfectly understand that some of the decisions we've made as a corporation have not always been well received by the team members on site and in the field. And luckily we've created a culture where people feel really comfortable speaking up and using their voice and sharing feedback. And so, none of the lessons have been too painful, because we were able to pivot and adjust and learn. And so nothing has been, so such a big deal, because I think we had the right mentality to always learn from our mistakes.
Alex, you mentioned earlier centralization. Is centralization just a buzzword? Is it a real thing for the industry, for Cardinal Group? What does that represent to you, Alex O'Brien, CEO of Cardinal Management, Cardinal Group? And also, I'd like to see what's your take on centralization when it comes to maintenance. Is that possible? A little bit possible? Like, we could do a lot of things when it comes to that. I'm really, really interested in that.
Is it a buzzword? No. It's a popular word, but it's not a buzzword. It's not something that is going away. I think that it has too much business value to just go away. If you can truly have a better mousetrap that cuts expenses, leads to better team member experience and better resident experience, that is not a buzzword. Like, we might be slow to change, and due to consolidation, where you have a lot of units are under a few companies, those companies generally are slower to change, because it's hard to move a big boat, right? When you turn it, it moves a little slower. And so I do think that centralization is probably a little slower to take hold, because you have some groups with big portfolios that are just not adopting it as quickly. But no, it is not a buzzword. It is going to change the industry. It is going to, and when people think it's going to change, they think it's going to adjust the org chart. It's going to adjust the skill set, and that's what people cannot lose track of. Working with advanced technology, being able to interact with AI, being able to kind of hand off sales, which is very common in most industries, including tech. But if the AI picked up the prospect to start, and a centralized person was providing them information and emailing back and forth, maybe even FaceTiming. And now the final step is an in-person, leasing agent or manager closing that. Like, that's a whole new skill. Then, the second they walk in for a tour or call, one leasing agent picks them up and kind of continues that relationship through. And so there's all kinds of changes to the skill sets that are going to be required. If done properly, my hope is we can eliminate a lot of the administrative work that chains our team to the desk. Like, nothing worse than when we go on site and we realize that our team They haven't even been out on the community, cleaning it, walking it, interacting with residents, learning people's dogs' names, making sure the amenities look good. It's like, because we have them tied to the desk doing just crap, custom reporting, some fire drill, some, all the follow up has to be done by that person on site, which is not necessary with centralization. So I think it's a big change coming. It's going to change jobs. It's going to change staffing plans. It's going to change skills. And I think because it's such a big change, it's intimidating. And some groups are like, whoa, I don't want to deal with that. But it is happening. Two, as it relates to maintenance, yes. Like, I mean, what other industry do you know in which when you have a really hard time staffing, they don't make changes? I mean, the inability to staff consistently on site with our maintenance teams will lead to changes in our industry. One, hopefully better pay. But two, I do think what you're going to see is more regionalized maintenance, which does require a lot of technology and coordination. You almost need a logistics team to pull it off. But the old amenity, which we remember the days when this happened, when on-site professional maintenance actually became an amenity we all started marketing. Like, I think those days are kind of done, and I think that now it's going to be about the efficiency of market maintenance, if you will, where we're able to triage, assign, and kind of deploy centralized maintenance techs to all of the communities, and we're seeing pretty amazing savings from doing that. And so if you think about how that will work, if we can cut maintenance, which we're doing, 20 to 25% in terms of cost, we can make a better team environment. I mean, we're using a regionalized maintenance model, and like the maintenance guys love it because it's like you're on a bigger team, you're getting cross trained. You don't just have the repetitive nature of being at one community for years and years. Not that there's some advantages there, but like I think that maintenance it's interesting. It's like the last frontier that people want to go after, and it's probably like the most interesting and important piece that will be centralized. Like the admin piece was relatively easy. Leasing, a lot of technology dollars kind of chased after like centralized leasing, but very few companies have been vocal about centralized maintenance, and that is going to be a big part of the centralized platform.
So I have a follow-up question on maintenance centralization, and I'm understanding that your model is to centralize maintenance, so it's being ran from a central location, right? Whether that's a team that services 3 properties or 30. But for the sake of the argument, let's just say it's 3 or 5. How can you get to make the processes so efficient to make up for the travel time? Because I'm gonna assume if the team shows up at a central location, they're gonna have to drive in between the certain properties, and that's time, right? That they're gonna have to be driving and not working. So how does it become? Because you mentioned like 20-25% like more efficient. I'm super interested in how do you get to get those results while also making up for the driving in between.
Yeah, I mean, really astute comment, very smart. The person that like responds to every email as it hits their inbox, or the person that has in an 8-hour day, they have like 16 30-minute meetings. Like that's not efficient. Like it's not efficient. Like what we do know is that the collecting and blocking up things creates efficiency. And so I think what we've seen the most efficiency is like, again, this kind of consolidation and triaging of work orders. And when we send a tech out to a property, there is no, I'm going to go do a work order. I'm going to come back to the maintenance shop. I'm going to come back. Like that's travel time. That's like the creep we don't talk about. Like if a maintenance tech goes from work order back to the maintenance shed 50 times in a day, that's way more than just driving there, work orders in hand, in order, with parts, ready to rock and roll. And so I think that, and this is one of the problems with centralization, is that people just don't realize how inefficient the current model is, because there's a lot of noise and waste and junk in the model. I will say, and I'm sure you guys have this at your house, like the junk drawer of like the 19 things you don't know where they go, but they're in a drawer. And for some reason you won't throw them away, but they're just all there. I was like, operations kind of has that too. And we have learned the hard way. And unfortunately, it can be a little bumpy, but when you start changing these operations models and saying, all right, we're going to use centralized services, or we're going to pull this and make it remote, there's like the 8 things in the junk drawer that you just still don't know where to put them. And you're like, oh no. Because, again, you can't ignore that it does create friction for the on-site teams, and it can create some busyness and hopefully not burnout, because a lot of people, we're trying to solve burnout, not create burnout. But so I do think that there's a little bit of like friction there, but the maintenance teams, certainly, again, it becomes down to logistics. And I know your background and knowledge is far superior to mine in the facility side. But if you're going to centralize it, the location where you centralize it, where the guys are coming from, where they end, kind of like how they start their day, how they end their day. I mean, there's a lot more logistics involved than just, go knock out a few work orders, get the pool cleaned, take care of the residents, stuff like that. So I think there's some of the best ideas I've heard is on, one, I think you can create these like tiger teams and SWAT teams, and there's a lot of connectivity, which I think is great. Again, if you have a friend at work, you generally like your job. And so I do think that those centralized maintenance teams really get along. But I think if you can use gamification, you can use a lot to like really motivate and encourage better performance. And so, yeah, I will say this, the challenges that exist, it's worth it to figure them out. It's worth it. And that's the way we've approached this, is like every obstacle that gets in our way, we're not going to turn back. We're not going to just say, oops, the drive time is a problem. I guess we're not going to do this. We've just solved problems. And I think we've had that just commitment to figuring it out and not just letting every obstacle deter our success.
I love the approach, right? Every single challenge, it's an opportunity to overcome the challenge. As long as you look at it from an opportunity perspective, it's a winner. You're always going to be on a winning side.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, we like to say you never lose, you just learn or win, which is an old Nelson Mandela quote. But we don't lose a lot. We're just but we do learn a lot. So
Mhm. So, Alex, I want to switch gears a little bit. I want to know what you like to do for fun. I know that you're a CEO with a amazing company. You're busy. I know you have big decisions that you got to make for your company every day, but tell us about Alex, the person on the personal side. Like, what do you like to do for fun? What brings you joy
yeah.
outside of work?
Well, I think what brings me joy is, which may be cliche, but I've 4 kids between the ages of 10 and 6. So I like being a dad. I like spending time with my children. Um, like all the fun, joy, craziness, headaches, challenges, worry, that all go into it. And so, I think what's most important to me is not just to be, admired CEO for my team, which that is important. I like to be an important member of the team, and I want my team to know they can count on me just like I count on them. But more than that, I want my kids to know they can count on me. And so I want to, always keep priorities straight. And so I spend a lot of time on the field in the gym, watching their sports, traveling around with them. My wife and I are like professional Uber drivers, on the side. I do like to ski. Like to spend time in the gym or outside, just kind of being active. And yeah, and then this is a good time of the year for me. I do like watching football, and so it's a fun. The fall is always a good time spending on the weekends with the family. Just have a game on, just kind of hanging out as a family. So.
Who's your favorite team?
Well, after 30 years of losing seasons, I'm proud to finally call myself an open Bengals fan. So,
Okay.
for a long time, the Bengals, we had to kind of put the brown bag over our head a little bit, but now it's life is good for Bengals fans these days, which is funny. My son was really upset his team had lost, and I was trying to console him, and he said, "It's easy for you. Your team always wins." And I'm like, "Player, are you out of your mind?" Like, I was like, "They've sucked for like my whole life. Like, let me just enjoy this for just a few years. My goodness, man. Like,
Well,
uh,
I'm a
so
Steelers fan, and I will say, anytime when Steelers plays Bengals or the Ravens, I'm shook. I'm scared because I'm like, oh my
mm,
gosh, it's going to
someone's
be a
getting
tough
hurt.
game.
Yeah, so I grew up in Southern Ohio, and so it's always funny because I'm such an Ohio homer. Like, love LeBron, love the Bengals, the Buckeyes, all the foods that come out of Ohio. I always brag about how amazing Ohio is, and then people are like, "Why don't you live in Ohio?" I'm like, "No, I'm good on that." Like, I was like, I like the mountains too much, but
You're on the
um,
other side of the country.
that's right. But it was a special place to be from, and a lot of great memories and connections there. So.
Alex, for the next question, I want to go back to your journey. You built an amazing organization. I've been watching Cardinal Group for several years. Unfortunately for me, where I lived at the time, there weren't opportunities that like the ones that I was looking for. But Cardinal was always a company on top of my list. If you were ever to come on the East Coast to have a significant presence right there, I would have signed up for it back in the day.
Thank you.
You see how you just plug that in there?
So that's an amazing accomplishment, right? Are you like 50,000 units now managed?
Yeah, pretty close. I think we'll be there hopefully at the start of next year. And so, yeah, we're getting there.
So the question is, what are the most important lessons you've learned from scaling your organization to such an impressive number?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a few. I think you got to sweat the small stuff. I do think that not every part of your organization scales at the same pace, at the same consistency. And so you got to really get into the details. And sometimes you get the headline of, this isn't working, but you don't, you really got to dive in and see, is it a people, is it a process? Was it a scaling problem? Like really kind of get in the details. So I like to sweat the small stuff, but I think that, leaders at every level, like I do not, like I can't, I don't run this company. Like the people run the company. And I think that, there's kind of this like levels of influence. And I think for most people, you can influence at max 3, but mostly 2 layers down any organization. Well, when you're a small company, I think there's only 1 layer, right? And so, well, there's 2. But like you just have, I used to just be able to drive a lot more direct influence of the business. And I think that, as you scale, like, you no longer do that, and so I spend a lot of my time focusing on, do we have the right leadership team that drive the values of this organization down to every team member? Do we have the most talented people that are creative, that can come up with like unique solutions on how to drive value to the real estate? Like, thinking about like a lot, do we have the right people in the right seats? And so I think that in some organizations, everyone's like, wow, their CEO is so impressive. I'm like, well, I'd hope so. But like that's not what drives the organization. Like what drives the organization, it's the regionals, the portfolio managers, the directors, the VPs, the RVPs, the regional facilities, the on-site team. It's like that layer of the organization needs leaders. And so, I always tell people like I can be the heartbeat, but everyone else has to keep the blood flowing here, and so it's not the organization is not great because of an executive team. The organization is great because of the people and the culture. And so I think that that's a hard lesson for some people, especially for executives. All they've known is success. And so a lot of executives that in businesses that have scaled that I've seen failed, you still have the same people just strangling the business because all they know how to do is directly manage. And so it's been a lesson. Luckily, I've just hired such amazing people who are also, we have great trust. And with great trust, they can tell me things like, will you shut up and get out of the way so I can do my job? And when they say that, then I can just get out of the way so they can do their job. And so I've just been so blessed with, I mean, not just current, like past team members. We've had executives that have been just amazing, spent a long time at their career, just done amazing things. They've gone on to do amazing things after Cardinal, but I mean, we've hired great people that have scaled this organization, and we're going to keep doing that. As we go from 50 to 60 to 80 to 100, like, I have no intent of relearning that lesson. And so we're going to keep hiring the best of the best, putting them in a great culture, paying them fairly, if not, more than fairly, challenging them, giving them opportunity. And that's how I think we're going to stay, on the trajectory that we're on.
Love it. This has been such an insightful conversation, Alex. And I just want to ask, do you have any words of wisdom, any gems that you would like to drop?
Woo. Well, one, don't be a Steelers fan.
Yeah. Oh,
I
hater,
mean,
hater
life, life,
already.
life is full of hard decisions. That is not one of them. Someone asked me this recently, and I'll just kind of repeat it. And they said, "What would you have told your younger self?" That kind of cheesy question or whatever. But um, I think just enjoy every step of the journey and like celebrate the wins. Like, and someone told me that in the Marine Corps. It's like everyone couldn't wait to get that next promotion, and the lieutenants became captains, became majors, or the corporals became sergeant. And I asked a major one time, and I said, like, is it awesome being a major? He said, no, it sucks. I'm not with the Marines anymore. Like, now I'm up at corporate, up at HQ. And that exists in business too. And I think that, like, for our on-site managers right now, like, everyone I talk to is like, I can't wait to, get to HQ or get a corporate job. I'm like, enjoy now. Like, now's awesome. Like, you're with the team, but you're with the residents. Like, you're on site, like taking care of like our customers, our residents. Like, that's the best part. And so I think just like slow down, enjoy every step. That big corporate VP job will be waiting for you someday, and it's all good. But like, celebrate the wins, but enjoy like each step of the journey in multifamily. It's not just about the next thing you do, it's about the current thing you do that really matters. So
Yeah. And I think too, I think we also have to remember that we want to climb the ladder, but when you do climb the ladder, there's sometimes a little bit more stress on you because, you have these big decisions that you have to make for the company. It's not just for your team, your
Mhm.
resident. Now it's on a bigger scale. So more responsibility.
Yeah. Sometimes at the top of that ladder, there's like a shark waiting too. Like, it ain't always like, a great journey. But that's all good. I think that our job is to equip people with the skills that they need to grow and to highlight their skills, put them in an environment where they can succeed and thrive and kick ass. And so, I love when I hear people's journeys, both current team members getting promoted, past team members that they'll give me a call and they say, I just got this. It's awesome. I love that. It should be an and, like, do all those things and enjoy right now. It's not an or. I think you can really enjoy this industry. And you know what, and you guys know this. I know you've worked at a few companies. um, the people you meet along the way are so important. I mean, think about the number of relationships you have from, you know, me and so used to be regionals together, or this person was, that person was a maintenance tech that worked for me and now they're like the national guy. But it's like those personal relationships matter so much. Like, don't don't forget those, especially in like a work from home or, whatever world that we're in. Like, those relationships with your team members matter so much. Like, make sure to take time to invest in those, spend time together, like, enjoy that relationship, because that relationship goes with you. Like, when you leave that current company, all of those special moments you had together of like build, camaraderie and working together, like, that survives, that goes with you. So
As we're approaching the end of our conversation, I do wanted to say thank you all for hanging out with us today for extra 30 minutes that, probably you weren't planning for it, but it was well worth it. And thank you, Alex O'Brien, for being such a good sport, for for the wisdom that you share with us here. It's incredibly valuable for us in the industry to have individuals, accomplished individuals, executives like you that they're sharing their story, they're sharing wisdom. Because in all reality, in person, how many people have access to you in person? Very few in reality, right? And this could be like 50, 100, or 200, but we use this opportunity to blast this out on the internet, and hopefully we have 1,000 people that have access to this wisdom. That's our goal, right? To take this and share it with the world, share it with our amazing industry. So thank you so much for being a great sport, for being here with us today. We hope to get you back here soon at another time.
Well, thank you. And being the first guest is super cool. I'm sure you're going to have some other just awesome people on here. And for those listening, thanks for your time. And if you need to get a hold of me, alex@cardinalgroup.com. I'd love to be a resource on your individual growth and your journey. And if I can help in any way, always here. So thanks again.
Everybody, again, thank you for hanging out with us today. Adrian, Neida, and Alex here in the studio. Stay tuned for the winner of the $50 gift card. Our partners at Apartment Snapshot will announce the winner soon. Have a great day. Have an amazing afternoon. And we will see you next Thursday. We have our guest next Thursday, Savannah Wheeler with Apartment Snapshot. Have a great afternoon.